Hey everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hey Ellen, Praneet, Atta, Belen. Uh, if you guys want to share where you're joining from, feel free to put it in the chat. We usually just gave it a few moments as people trickle in. If anyone wants to share where they're joining from, maybe what they're building, what made you interested in learning about pivoting. Praneet, great, joining from the Bay Area. Nice to see you. I see Atta's joining back. Oh, got a few people joining in. Hello, hello. Hi, Valentina. Hi, Suba.
Hi, Natalie. Hi, Matthias.
Hi. If you want to share, Valentina, what made you interested in joining? What are you building?
Oh, well. Can I? Well, I'm actually part of Smart Labs, so I'm here supporting Matthias.
Okay, great. Nice. Well, happy to have you here.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Hi, Joel, Atta. Did any of you want to share and come off mute or off camera and share what made you interested in joining today? Oh,
You
you
are,
can't
I can
hear
hear
me.
you. I can hear you. Okay, Natalie.
Atta, I think your volume's not working, so you might want to check so you can hear our session today. Other people can hear us, so let me message Atta. Um, uh, there we go. Hi, everyone. Hi, George. Hi, Luxon, Enrique. Where are you guys joining from? Feel free to put it in the chat. And if anyone wanted to share, hi, yeah, what made you want to join today or what you're building? Atta, if you want to share, I saw you come off camera for a moment. George, I see you're from Oakland. Great, nice. Mario, can I ask what are you building? What made you want to join today's session? I see Praneet says he's building an AI cost reduction tool. Nice. I mean, AI tools are expensive, and so that's great. Anyone else want to share what they're building or what made them interested in today's session? Has is anyone in the process of pivoting right now at the moment?
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Grace.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, always happy to see a familiar face. Are you what made you interested in joining and if you want to share about what you're building, Grace?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm Grace. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Lucid Care AI. We have been in business for the past 6 years. We're doing, remote patient monitoring with patients at home. So for the past 6 months, we have been trying to kind of transition or pivoting towards more of AI native applications because we got a lot of data. We have a lot of just data information. So I'm interested in learning in this webinar to just try to learn what the best practices or what other people are doing. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that'll be useful for Mateus to share. Mario, did you want to share a little about yourself, what you're building, what made you interested?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mario Sierra. I'm the founder and CEO of Harmonic Biosciences. So we're creating a device to measure hormones continuously. A CGM is the closest analogy. On top of that, there would be an AI layer for personalized precision medicine. So once we can unlock the data, we need AI to come in and do some predictive analytics. And then additionally, we're working on a in silico discovery model for our base technology, which are our DNA sequences. They're called aptamers. So there's a lot of in silico modeling happening with that right now.
Nice. Great. And I see George is also in the health case. He's building AI agent for lung cancer survivors. Saw the event listing and have enjoyed previous events from XMart Labs, so thought he'd have my lunch and lurk. Nice. Great. And I'm just checking if I missed anyone else. So right before we get started, I'll just do a quick share about funding Breakthrough Lab. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So for those of you who don't know us, we're actually a nonprofit. We run, workshops like this. We do some in-person events here in San Francisco. And right now we have about a 24,000 following. And so if you're interested in events like this, luma.com/FBL. It pretty much started from me just being a community builder. When I was a software engineer and then wanted to do my own company, I realized going from 0 to 1 was very different than working at a startup. And at that time, unfortunately, I was volunteering with Girls in Tech. They shut down. But my friend and I saw that as the opportunity to launch the female founder community. And eventually, I launched Funding Breakthrough Lab. It's a 10-week pre-accelerator. We have a lot of people in the community helping out, helping us find great speakers. We had great reviews. We've had 3 cohorts so far. Someone said, "Hey, this was more better than their their MBA program that they paid for." Shashank even actually made his first enterprise sales through a mentorship that we had. Some of our mentors actually even mentor at Berkeley Skydeck. And he actually ended up getting a 1 million partnership deal with KFC Ventures. We have opening and closing retreats at one of our speakers' farms. And a lot of the people that come through our community are underserved founders, immigrant founders, or first-time founders with deep expertise. So we had a lot of people with 10, 20 years of experience, but just lacking network and knowledge about the ecosystem. And we also get a lot of impact-oriented founders, which I love. And so we have conferences. Actually, this was one I think we did with XSmart Labs as well. They did a presentation that day. And we also get a lot of female founders in our cohort. I love supporting the female founder community. So we always get around 50%. We've had tons of mentors and speakers come through. We also had investors come through our program. We do a lot of pitch practice and we cover everything from, how to manage stress to go to market, pitching, founder traits, how to maintain control of your company, things that founders need to know to be successful. We focus on founder success, not just startup success. And so with that, if you're interested in following our events, it's luma.com/FBL. And I'll just stop share and I'll let Mateo take it from here. Matea, sorry.
No problem. Perfect. Thank you. Let me quickly share. Perfect. You should be seeing my screen. Let me know if you don't. Hi, everybody. Hillary, do you want to give forward?
I can kick us off a little bit. It's lovely to join you all. As Natalie mentioned, Smart Labs and Funding Breakthrough Lab have collaborated on a number of events. Some people say Smart Labs, some people say X Smart Labs. Either way is fine. And as we were throwing around ideas, conversations, some of the themes we're hearing from early stage founders, we tend to work with folks a little bit further along, but we always love to keep an ear on the ground on what founders are going through and what we're seeing. Smart Labs has been doing software development, custom software development for nearly 15 years. And we really take a consultative approach to the projects that we take on. So we're coming alongside as some of that product thinking, some of that strategy. And what we've seen in this AI transition that we've been working through for 7, 8 years, as we've thought about how the industry is changing, is this piece comes up a lot around judgment and around how do you adapt the speed and also keep that focus on what the product actually is. You hear it all the time that the bottleneck has changed, and so we wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on that. So we brought in Matthias to think through some of the experiences that he's had, what he's seen working with startups, and some of his recommendations on building AI tooling. In terms of our approach, if you want to jump to the next slide, we think a lot about how do we adapt the lean development framework for the AI era, that we know these best practices around focusing on what drives business value, on not overbuilding, on high communications, user-driven features, and how do we iterate all of that. So that was really the foundation for us coming into this session today. So Matthias, take it away.
Thank you, Hilary. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Matthias. I'm an engineering manager at Smart Labs. Hilary already gave an introduction on our company, and I'm very excited to be here. So thank you very much, Natalie and FBL for the space. So today we're going to talk about pivoting, and that's a very wide term for a stage that I would say companies, startups probably dread. It's a strong word, but it's a hard phase to go through. So it's good to have support and to understand what challenges are coming or are currently you're currently going through. So let's just quickly start with a reminder of what phases a product might go through. This is everybody here knows this, so we're gonna quickly skim through this. So the idea phase, the product takes shape in your mind, high motivation, you wanna build this, you think it's gonna solve a bunch of problems. The MVP phase, you either bootstrap your project or get fundraised and full focus on building an MVP. High stakes, high motivation. You want to get this through the door and get it to users. The validation phase, the first version of your product is done. You start getting actual user feedback and your search for the elusive product market fit, which I believe I saw some of the comments on chat that are on this specific phase. This is a phase that's famous for challenges to the motivation side because a lot of your ideas are being tested live by users, and that can be scary, but we'll talk about that a bit more in the next slides. And the growth phase, which everybody wants to get to, which is, okay, my product has found the fit. I've found users that want to use it, that want to pay for it. And now it's time to grow, to focus on operations and the scaling of my product. So we all know this. Today we're going to focus on the validation phase and maybe also the transition from MVP to validation. It's also good to remember that these are just ways to classify and order a chaotic process, such as a startup's life cycle. So you might be on the MVP phase, but validating. You might be in the idea phase, but validating. So this techniques and information we're going to talk about today can apply to you even if you're not exactly on the validation phase. So let's move on. So we all know, or I hope everybody's familiar with the startup J curve. We've got two different models here to look at the lives of a startup. There's the inverted hockey stick graph, which is a bit different to this one. What I want to call out from this graph is that uh, you see on the y-axis it's money in this particular graph, but it applies to also motivation, to um, other things. So once you reach MVP, you start trying to get users, and that might raise the amount of money you're earning, your revenue. But then comes the validation phase where you have to actually reach the product market fit. Before reaching that, you might experience some users that start using your application, customers, but you might get a lot of churn. So you need to start addressing that. And that creates a very bumpy road towards the growth phase. Um, it depends naturally on what stage you're in and what your customers are, but and if you know your audience. But it's for sure the validation phase is very challenging in that you're probably changing constantly and evolving, and that process is very chaotic, not just for your product, but also for your company as a whole. So that's what I wanted to call out here. Moving on. So what we saw pre-2022, the start of the AI era, arguably, uh, we saw that a bunch of people had ideas. Some of those got to an MVP stage, got to build something with a team or maybe by themselves. Um, Fewer got to the validation phase and the bumpy road to growth. And of those, some got to the actual growth phase and uh, could start scaling. So this was pre-2022, and we had some challenges at that point. First, finding a team. So finding a solid technical team that could deliver on your idea was challenging. You needed somebody strong that could realize whatever plans you had for your MVP and get them to start building. Managing the runway was very challenging, of course. Unexpected costs. The timeline extends way beyond what you planned for. And then, of course, fundraising, which is selling your product to somebody without having it or with a small prototype or even an idea. So those were the challenges that we had pre-2022. And I'm going to make a statement now, and I think that today in the current market, I would say the first two problems are somewhat addressed by AI tooling. So maybe you don't need a team of people to start on your idea. You just need yourself and an AI tool and start prompting. I also read on the chat that somebody was working with hardware. Naturally, that's a bit different. You can use AI tooling, of course, but you probably need a lot of know-how on the business and how to manage the actual hardware. But when it comes to more software or maybe the software side of that product, probably the finding a team that develops and managing the runway has become much easier because you probably had to think only on the software and AI tooling costs and not actually getting a team together and paying for all that operation. At least when it comes to getting to an MVP or very close to an MVP. Fundraising is still naturally hard. Arguably, it's harder today. Everything has to be AI to get funded. Everything has to have AI effectively implemented and solving a problem. So we are in a bumpy market at this particular point in time. So I'm going to add another challenge that we have today, which is competition. This is not rocket science, of course. A lot of people are working on projects, on their ideas using AI tooling. The App Store has exploded with new apps. The web has exploded with new pages, new products. So code is no longer what separates you from the rest. It's not a problem of I have or not just a problem of I have the best working app and it's beautiful and it works. Um, it's deeper than that. So there's a phrase I wrote there: products can be copied in a day. It's a bit uh, extreme, of course, but the idea here, or the main point, is that the code you have today is not really what matters on your product. What matters is, or I guess the bottleneck is no longer implementation or getting to MVP. The bottleneck is the validating and getting your users to use your product. And that's unfortunately not something that AI solves by itself. It's something that requires a lot of human input. Um, so now we are at this stage where pretty much everybody that has an idea can reach an MVP or close to MVP stage. But validation still is a bottleneck, still is, I say, the great filter of startups. And it's more noticeable than before because if we have a lot of MVP stage startups, and getting past the validation phase is pretty hard. So, okay, having said that, I already mentioned that AI has impacted a lot of our industry, but I already mentioned this. You may not need to hire to get close to an MVP. There's low investment to launch, of course, and there's the last mile problem, which is also important here, and we're going to talk about this. But the faster you develop your product using AI tools or whatever, the more likely it is to be less stable in the future. So code quality drags, the tech debt piles up. You might implement patches over patches over patches on your product just to iterate quickly, and that can cause issues down the line when you try to get it to be stable. So we're going to talk about how we can address this. So in today's world, you're not competing against 10 similar apps, you're competing against 1,000. So let's talk about how we can prepare for this and how you can try to be competitive and effective in the validation phase. So what is our real value here? I mentioned code is no longer your IP, and that can be scary because sometimes you see your product working and ready and thinking, oh, this took me months to create, and somebody could just come and see my screens, um, not your code, but how my app works and copy it. So that's kind of scary. So what is the real value you have on your product? So how your product fits in the market is really everything. You need to try to get it to fit, and that's probably your main priority. Where pre-2022 you would first focus on getting a product actually developed. Another thing you need to understand or be aware of, and I'm pretty sure those of you who are already working on products know this, is that nobody knows what your users want. Not even they know what they want. So it's hard to develop something for them if you don't know what their needs are. And this is more of a thought, but adding a feature might take 5 times less than before, but hitting the nail with it is still as hard. So you can implement 5 different features in the time it took you to implement one, but if those 5 are not what your users want, then you are still wasting time. Okay, so pivoting. Once you create your MVP, your users start using your product. You start getting feedback, sometimes honest feedback that you didn't have a chance to get before, and you start noticing churn or not as many users are paying for your app, or you're not getting enough customers to really start using the product. So you start thinking about pivoting. Naturally, it's hard for me to tell you what you should pivot your startup to. That's impossible for me to do. But we'll look at different strategies you could use to pivot or start experimenting effectively. So pivoting is a creative process. It's not necessarily a technical process today. Naturally, there's a lot of technical know-how in pivoting and understanding where you're going and how to go there. But it's a creative process. It's understanding what people will like and trying to reach that point by being useful. Resilience is key. I'm sure everybody here already knows this. Your ideas will constantly be challenged by when pivoting. Nobody has the answer. You don't have the answer. Your customers don't have the answer. So it's more staying strong. If you think your product has a future, then it's staying strong and moving forward. And being flexible. Being flexible is very important. Some ideas sound good but are bad, and some ideas sound bad but are actually good. So it's good to be flexible and not be strongly tied to your initial idea. You have to let it mutate and evolve as the needs of your customers are become more evident and clearer. And the only way to reach that point is to test things, fail, and evolve. Okay, so validating a product requires three things, and the fourth one, asking the right questions from your customers to your customers, testing as much as possible, and leveraging your team effectively. And team can be a one-person team. It's more of a blanket statement. And one thing that covers everything is be prepared to evolve as quickly as you can, which I already mentioned. Let's talk about some of these techniques or tips. So asking good questions, interview your users. Do not assume what your users want. That's always a step in the wrong direction. Maybe you started your product because you saw a need yourself and you thought, I would use this product. Well, it's good to think that you're not the average user of your product. So it's always good to remember that. It's hard even to say that there exists an average user of your product or such a thing, but you're not the target user of your product. If you were, you would not be trying to sell it. You would just use it yourself and move on. The mom test. I hope that everybody is familiar with the mom test, but when you are interviewing users or asking for feedback, focus on your users' problems and not your idea. You don't want them to be polite. You want them to be honest. And the way to get them to do that is to just talk about their problems. Everybody is happy to complain about their own problems, and but nobody is happy complaining about your idea or your app. So that's also a good thing to keep in mind. And depth first. Start with a niche and go from there. You don't want to cast your net too wide. You just want to focus on who your immediate or most who is more likely to use your product today, and then start thinking about who's less likely to use it, and try to get them in. Okay, so ask good questions. Testing as much as possible. This is also very important, and it's even more important in today's AI-driven world because testing is much cheaper today, and that's, I guess, the main point of this talk is empowering you to be a tinkerer of your own product and do it quickly and effectively. So to test, you need to get feedback. And to get feedback, you need to go out to get your potential customers. We talked about this in the last slide. Get them to use the product. Don't show it to them. This is naturally the previous slide was more about getting feedback or getting interviewing potential customers. This is more of a testing with them. So get them to use the product. Don't show it to them. If you show your product, you are always going to bias them into thinking it's good. Get them to use it. I don't know if it's a subscription product, then license them give them a few months free. I don't know. It really depends on your product, but get some honest feedback from your customers. If your customers are out of your network, get an introduction. If you think you're aiming for a crowd that's not really your local network, then try to get introductions outside of it, and try to reach your real actual user base. As I said, you want to aim for a niche if possible and start from there. So you want to get those that are more likely to use it. They will probably give you the most interesting feedback to start. So talking about AI and experimentation. Pre-2022, what would happen if you were developing an MVP? And I've worked with, I've been working for Smart Labs for 10 years now, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs and startups. I've worked with enterprise customers. So I've seen products in very different stages, and um, I've definitely seen these things I'm going to talk about pre-2022. So you would create your product, gather feedback, define priorities, and have your team implement the changes. So I don't know, a startup founder would just talk to potential customers and come back to us and just say, okay, I want to build this, I want to do it this way. And we would iterate on that, talk about it, define priorities, create a roadmap, implement, test, release, and then the founder would go back to their potential customers and say, okay, here, I have this. And they would say, oh, yeah, it's good. And they would not use it. So that would take weeks. It could even take months if the changes were too big. Sometimes there was a lot of focus on, hey, I interviewed 3 customers. They all said, I would like to see a dashboard with these metrics, blah, blah, blah. And they would focus completely on that, get that done. And once they released it, nobody used that page because it's not really solving a problem they had. They just thought they had that problem. So that would take weeks. And it would be weeks that maybe somebody would use that feature, but actually it was a wasted time and investment, of course. Post 2022, we have an advantage here, which is how AI tooling fits into the process. So now what you can do is you can gather feedback, implement immediately, and loop. So you gather feedback, you experiment, you test, and you show that to your customers. You get immediate feedback, and your team, and again, it can be only yourself, but once you have your priorities in order and validated, your team implements them, and that uh, creates a more polished product in the end. And the loop takes maybe days or even hours in some scenarios. Naturally, a big asterisk here is you cannot implement your product from scratch every day. That's not reasonable. This is more about quick changes, implementing new features that might get your customers in more interested, and testing them out very quickly. So how this is a very crude diagram of how this would work. You get feedback. Uh, you implement a scrappy version with your customers' feedback, and you loop on that. So you might create, I don't know, 3 different versions of your product with different features. You might patch a feature again and again and again to get it to feel right for the customers. Uh, and that essentially is a very scrappy process. It's prompting and prompting and prompting, or using whatever tools you need to get that feature done. And that creates a lot of, as I mentioned, tech debt, dead code, things that are not used. So it's good to think of that as a very scrappy process, which you eventually are gonna throw in the trash, to be honest. And then you move on to a final polished implementation where okay, from all this um, trashy code I created, trashy features and patches, I want this, this, and this, and this. And you take that out and you put it on a very polished final version, which you actually release to all your users, or you handle however you prefer. So the loop. The loop here is you evaluate the feedback in batches or in any way you actually want. That turns into a prompt. That's a very generic statement, but essentially you use your AI tooling to really make those changes in a scrappy way. You focus on how it feels for users. Do customers like it? Are you getting engagement from those new features you tried? Do not think about scale at that point. You just want users to catch on and to um, start uh, onboarding into your product. Who can do this? So this is a very important thing. If you're a solo founder, naturally, and you don't have a team, naturally, it's you and you. The answer of who is just you. But if you have a team, even if it's a small team, um, you can get everybody to start really experimenting with your product. And that I think is very enriching and empowering for somebody. I don't know. I put there your dev, your marketing, your attorney, even. So anybody can actually experiment with your product and try new avenues and new things. So it's good to empower your team to be able to experiment and give them the tools to do it. Uh, I believe this is a bit underestimated, and there's sometimes some pride that interjects here and can complicate things. You think your product is yours, and that if somebody else can make decisions over it, then it's not yours anymore. I think the advantages are better than the disadvantages here. Having everybody be able to test gives you much more feedback, more ideas, more ways things could be done. So I think everybody on your startup should be able to mutate your product and evolve it. Naturally, you make the final decision of what goes in and what does not, but it's always good to have. I think what I'm getting to is pre-2022, you would have somebody come and say, "Hey, I have this idea. Maybe we can do it. Yeah, maybe we can do it," and you would never do it. Now somebody can come to your can give you a call on Slack and say, "Hey, I did this, and this is how it looks on the site, and this is how it works," and you see it in action. So that's a very strong and a great way to get your startup to get your team to contribute to the product. Okay, so how do you do this? You as I mentioned before, you do quick iterations that go in the trash. And it's a it's a harsh word to say throwing things in the trash, but what is important here is to compile. Sorry, Nancy, you're unmuted. Ah, thank you. So the idea is to find what's important, compile all those nuggets of wisdom and good features, and then move forward with a Flash implementation. And if you're a solo dev, solo founder, I mean, don't underestimate stability. Stability is very important. Uh, I would argue you want to go through this process of doing scrappy versions of your features and then moving on to a final implementation that's cleaner. Even if you are a solo founder, eventually scale is going to be a problem you want to attack. Even at small scale, some things pile up very quickly, and with AI tools, sometimes it can take weeks to get to a point where it's hard to know what's happening, and there's a bunch of things that are not used anymore. So I um, I recommend heavily that you don't underestimate the stability of your project. Okay, so we are approaching the end here. I don't know where I am on time. I think we're fine. Some final tips here. Keep a tidy roadmap as much as possible. This goes back to what I mentioned before. You don't want to explore 100 different ideas for 6 months. you want to quickly iterate and start cutting what's not useful and trying to reach a tidy roadmap. This is more important if you have a team. If you're flying solo, then you can manage this however you like, but it's good to try to get your team to feel that there's an endpoint to everything. There's an objective we're going towards. Scrappy and polished are opposites. Don't let one contaminate the other. So what I mentioned, you don't want a scrappy process tainting your actual main product. Then the customer is always right until they're not. This is also what I mentioned a few slides ago. I've seen founders really interview 3 customers and they all say the same thing, so they go immediately and implement that. It's good to understand that nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows what they like until they use it and they like it. So try to focus on your customers' problems and not exactly how they think it should be solved. And finally, earn the trust of your audience and keep it. So what I mean by this is you need to have uh, a market you are aiming towards, and you need to earn their trust and keep it. When pivoting, you might think about cutting features or completely removing a part of your application, or I don't know. You need to be aware of what impact that has on your users. And I'm not saying you should not pivot to the country, but you should always try to keep the trust of your audience. If there's a very, very important feature that the users are using and they like it, think twice before removing it or changing it in a way that they wouldn't approve of. There's another asterisk here, which is if you're pivoting completely away from your initial market, then yeah, it's fine if you just burn a couple of bridges there. I mean, you're pivoting to something completely different, and we're going to see some examples now. So those are the tips I have. Let's look at some examples of famous pivots. You might already be familiar with these. I think they're pretty known, but it's good to understand that sometimes a pivot can be very extreme. For example, Slacks started as a video game called Glitch. The game could not find an audience, so they they discovered the tool they had implemented for communication inside the team was great, and so they started selling it. And that's all. Nobody remembers even what Glitch is, but everybody knows Slack. So that's a very interesting pivot in that the tools that they created for to develop their product ended up being the product. Netflix, we all know this, DVD rental service, the Blockbuster story where everybody thought Blockbuster would win. It's an established competitor, and they pivoted to streaming over the web, something that nobody had done. This had strong implications on the physical operations of the company. No more DVDs, everything on the web. So it's a very strong, very hard pivot there. And then Shopify. I actually did not know about this, but Shopify was an online snowboard shop. They had to build the tools to create a digital storefront. And guess what? The digital tools were great. The store, not so much. So they started selling um, the tool itself. So that became Shopify, and the rest is history. So these are very famous and very successful pivots. Your pivot might not be as hard as these ones, but the idea here is that I guess the takeaway here is everything is on the table, and nothing is a bad idea just by itself. You need to test it. You need to understand if it makes sense or not. Your customers might surprise you. Your assumptions will be tested constantly. Okay, so I mentioned we work with a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, and so we have been working on ways we can help you in this new world of AI, and we've come up with other ways we can go join you in your quest for getting an MVP done. So that's why we've uh, worked on this new service we're offering, which is idea to working MVP in 5 days. The idea is that I mentioned stability of your project is important, and getting a good foundation is something we really strive for. So we've developed this service where we offer a 5-day accelerator where we try to get our customers with a starting version of their product in 5 days. That's a way to lower the initial investment and to try to get a good foundation to then start iterating over. Once you have it, you can do whatever you want with it and try to evolve your product using the tips and tools we talked about. Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I see one from Mariana in the chat, and I feel like you might have slowly answered some of this already. I'm finding that reaching new customers is harder than ever because consumers are bombarded with new offerings. Are there any channels you found that aren't as noisy for consumer-based products? And so I think one answer was like you can get, your own team to test your product to do iterations. But Matthias, if you have any thoughts on finding customers.
That's a good question. So I think it depends a lot on what your product is essentially. Um, if it's open to any user, then I think a good way. So I understand this is not an answer to your question, but trying to find the niche of people that are more interested and trying to target them specifically, that is what I would try. I think that if you cast your net wide, a lot of people will not really be interested immediately. The next question is, how do I know what's my niche and how do I reach them? I think that's a hard question to answer. Um, but yeah, sorry, that's all I have. I'm reading through the chat here. I think how to find test users before deployment. Using them to get feedback is very costly. Okay, so I guess it really depends on your product. So I understand your customers. I think there are ways and ways you can do. I'm thinking, I don't know, A/B testing for trying to get users to give feedback, have non-intrusive ways of getting feedback from your actual customers. And then the test users, that's difficult. You would need to really find new leads or potential customers and test with them. I guess we can talk about specifics, but in general, that's what I would say. Mario, you have your hand up.
Yeah. My question is, what have you seen around agentic AI for some of the coding? So, I mean, as a non-technical person, I can get around vibe coding, right? But I've heard that it's like if you train an agent to do it, they know more of the, I guess, the back end stuff. Because I think that's one of the limitations I think that you pointed out too is the pipes basically on the back end. I don't necessarily know how to validate that they're set up properly. So, what have you seen on agentic coding?
So uh, I've seen So my perspective here is that when you start an MVP or start working with AI tooling agents, it yeah, I think George is saying exactly. Uh, oh, I'm sorry. He's answering another question. Sorry, but it depends on what you are asking from the agent, and I'm we're currently using AI tools, of course, to develop projects. And to be honest, what I've found is that if you try to start small and get uh, some things done, it works fairly well. Once it starts growing and you start patching stuff, that's when it can get a bit risky. That's where I found agents go maybe hallucinate some things. Maybe they don't reach the best solutions, and you have to be aware of what they're doing and understanding. But I think for an MVP, for testing something, for a scrappy feature, it works pretty well. So I'd say you might reach a point where you need a team of engineers or maybe one engineer, but to start or to get some things done, it's great. I'm sorry, Grace. By agentic testers, you mean like actually using AI to test your product and get feedback?
Correct. Like I posted the previous question, like I'm just trying to find the best way to test the new features and functions. And we have existing customers, so we have like environment and production environment, testing
Hmm.
environment. All this transition takes time to loop through, right? So we don't want to just I don't want to implement the premature features and tip off the existing customers. So our users are, nurses and not just anybody like without clinical knowledge, they can just come in and, buy something or just, so it's hard to
Hmm.
find the right person to test it. So thinking about what is the best way to find a more of a cost-effective testers, qualified and cost-effective. So
I,
many AI tools we can use to use if you have any suggestions.
I think using AI tools for feedback is great. It's not a replacement for actual users, of course. The problem with the good thing about AI tool feedback is that you get feedback for essentially free. Um, and what I always do when I do that is I am open to ideas, but I don't fully trust them until I work them out myself and I have understood exactly what I want to make. Um, Also, another problem is in order for you to have an AI tool that closely resembles your users, you need to know your users very well. So it's a chicken and the egg thing. I want to know how my users will react to this, but I need to build a tool that knows how my users will react. So um, um, I think it's great to use some kind of AI tool on feedback, and you can try to prompt it in a way that gives it context that your users have or your customers have. If they're nurses, you can try to set up scenarios and try to get the tools to do it. For instance, you could use, if it's a web product, you could use Cloud Code for web. I don't remember right now if there's an extension for, I don't know, ChatGPT or similar, but there could be, and it could have the AI tool go through some scenarios. What I would recommend there is having a main prompt that gives them the context of what um, the customer is. If they are a nurse, give them context, hospital where they work at, I don't know, any relevant context, and then give them a task and a final prompt to give feedback in a structured way that you can then process maybe. That's something that I would do. Like I said, it's quick to implement, but it's not necessarily very precise or accurate. when it comes to what your users want. But I would certainly try to test it. I think it's fairly cheap to do, um, and you can do it. It can take some refinement. Maybe the initial runs are not as effective, but you can refine the prompt and keep doing it. It's essentially a user test, but we're using AI as the user, and I would say it falls into synthetic data, user data generation. I'm reading the chat here.
Thank you.
Okay, there are people answering you. Perfect. Uh, George, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts, and I really appreciate the discussion. I think it's important to distinguish feedback from testing. Like if you're testing, that can be done by automation. And if you're having trouble testing, maybe your scope of your MVP has gotten away from you if you can't find all the test cases. But in terms of feedback, I mean, that's depends on the product you're building and it's where it's used. But you do need some people to use it in the real world and give you, you know, qualitative feedback on whether it delights them and they hate it. It's useful. And I think what's gotten cool is you can build something that can be used like that much faster now. Like you're saying, Mateus, like, in 5 days, you can build a credible working prototype and put it in the hands of somebody with enough scope. You can say, use this for a month to track your health, for instance, and let me know if you found it helpful or frustrating or incomplete. It used to take 10 people 10 months to build something to get to that scope. So I think that's the change. But still, you have to get it to the real people. There's no substitute for, people are emotional, people are busy, people have competing tasks. Like AI can't skip that, I think, if you're talking about a surface that hits a user, a real person at the end. So just, think about that. But I think, you know, I'd be curious if people don't have an identified use case and potential end users, you might be wrong and have to pivot, but that usually comes early in the process. Like I want to help nurses do their job better, or I want people with diabetes to manage their health better. And then you work out from there. So anyway, just some thoughts, but it's certainly gotten faster. No question about that.
Completely agree. Yeah. Uh, AI is no substitute for the real thing. So you will always need to get to your users. I completely agree. Praneet, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, one question. I think, and thank you for all these frameworks, and they really make sense when you're refining a product. But what about business viability, right? Like you maybe have a product that works, it targets a niche, you're good there. But is this even a sustainable business? Can you truly build a company off of this? Like, how do you validate that in this AI era? Yeah.
Well, I think that um, that's a good question. I think that's still a challenge. I'm sure AI can help you in the business validation, but uh, like we said, if you have a bunch of users and your question is if your business is going to work, then you need to start focusing on what are your operational costs, what if you have user churn or not. So it's very tied to what your users want and how much they're willing to pay for it. What are your costs? So I have right now I have a client that is very worried about their business model. For instance, they don't know how to charge for their product, and they've been pivoting hard on that. They've been changing how they charge users to get it to a state where it's enticing for the user to pay for it or for the service, but it's also not, or the margins are enough for them to stay afloat. Um, and I'm sure AI can help you think and brainstorm, but uh, the the way I would do it is go to your users and try to find out what the best way to charge them is and how they would feel happy uh, being charged. Also, there's another asterisk there. Be careful with changing your business model constantly. That can frustrate users unless the change is good for them. So that's also another thing to keep in mind.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions?
This is Atta. I was wondering how could we take advantage of your 1 week product development?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you'd like to talk about our 1 week AI sprint, we can certainly talk about that. You can contact us on hi@smartlabs.com. It's a general inbox, but I'm sure I'll get the message forwarded to me, and eventually we can talk about this. Or um, it's not a
Mhm.
product; it's more of a service.
I understand. Yes. Could you
Perfect.
share your contact information on the chat by any chance?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is my email. I am sorry, but I don't have LinkedIn. I'm one of those people. Um, but feel free to drop me an email if you wanna chat, or if I can help in any way. Any other questions I can help you with? Perfect. I think we're done. Natalie?
Yeah, we're perfectly on time. Thanks everyone for joining. We do have a few events. If you look at our calendar, there's a Codex meetup tonight, and this week we have another immigrant founder event. And so feel free to subscribe if you want to check out our other events. But with that, thank you guys for coming and look forward to seeing you at our future events.
Thanks everybody for being here. It was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hillary. Thanks, Mateus. Appreciate this
Thank
workshop.
you,
Yeah, great.
Natalie.
Bye.